all weird.
Yeah, this is how it works, Becca. Okay, like this is the chaos that we're at.
I love it.
Time. Hey, welcome back, or welcome if this is your first time here. Today we have a very special and super fun episode. We're here with Rebecca Ross, the author of Dreams Lie Beneath, among other awesome books, but she's here to do like an author debut. So hi Becca.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're very excited. I'm a fangirl, so just prepare yourself. And I'm Valia, by the way. Hi. And Hanna is here as well.
Hello.
Yeah, so we're just gonna dive right in because we just want to have Becca tell us all the things. So yeah, please go ahead and introduce yourself for those of our listeners that don't know who you are.
Yeah, so I'm Rebecca Ross. I am the author of The Queen's Rising, The Queen's Resistance, Sisters of Sword and Song, and the recently released Dreams Lie Beneath. I have been writing basically my whole life. It's something that was a dream of mine when I was like a kid to be a published author. And so, yeah, I have a few other books coming up as well. River Enchanted is my first adult fantasy book coming out February 15th. So that's very exciting. And it will have a sequel releasing later on, a few months later. So
a few months later. Wow.
Yes. And I don't know if I'm supposed to say that yet.
We're like, wait a minute.
So yeah, they're planning to release the sequel, like on an accelerated track, but it's probably fine to say. I don't know. I don't have a release date yet, but they did. That was like something they wanted to do. So I'm, I don't know.
That's cool.
That's exciting. I always hate it when it's too long in between and then I forget the end of the last book. I'm like, I know I liked it, but I don't remember what's going on.
Yes, that's always a bummer, but that's cool though. That's exciting. We're going to talk about your most recent release for now because I'm obsessed with this book. Hanna knows I bullied her into reading it.
It wasn't hard. It wasn't hard. I had already read Sisters of Sword and Song and I had really enjoyed it. And then like that cover, like was it Annie Stig did your cover?
Yes.
And I've been following her for years. She's amazing. And it's so beautiful, guys. Like go look at it.
Yeah.
And I was like, it must be on my shelf. It's so beautiful.
It's true.
But then I read it right away because Valia bullied me.
Yes, exactly. See, it works. The bullying works. No, okay. Don't take this out of context, people. So let's talk about the book itself. Can you just give us like a quick overview, what it's about? I think it's better coming from you than me trying to like explain it.
I don't know. I'm horrible at like describing my own book.
I know it's another thing.
So Dreams Lie Beneath is about a young magician named Clem who lives in this world where every new moon, nightmares have the power to come to life. And so magicians are the ones who stand between people and their darkest of dreams. And they do that by kind of dividing cities and towns into territories. And so the magicians will go and record nightmares down and study these nightmares so they are prepared, even though they can't predict which nightmare might materialize on which new moon, but they can prepare spells in advance because they know, okay, these are all the possible nightmares that might come to life. So Clem is very happy doing this with her dad in her small town, but everything changes when one night, two young, handsome magicians waltz into town and challenge Clem and her dad for their territory. And so they have to fight for the town. And I won't give anything else away, but things don't necessarily go according to plan for Clem. And so it sets her on this revenge path where she decides to take on an enchanted disguise and partner up with one of these young, handsome magicians to take revenge on him and his family. But things get a little complicated when she realizes they're both involved in a very dangerous game of court intrigue.
So good. You guys, it's honestly so good. That's all I have. No, I remember reading it. Like I flew through that book so fast and it's so long, but like I didn't even realize it because I was just like, oh my gosh. And then Hanna knows this. I kept talking about it to them in like a chat.
Which was rude because we couldn't read it yet.
I know, because I read the early advanced copy. So I was like, you guys, you have to pre-order this. You have to get this book. Okay. And
I'm always amazed when people say, because I've had a few readers say, oh yeah, I read it in like 2 sittings and it is my longest YA to date. It's like 118,000 words. And so I'm always super impressed when people are like, yeah, I read it really quickly. So
Hey, that says a lot about your writing though, because I was telling Hannah before we got started that I'm like, I have such a hard time with fantasy sometimes because I don't feel like I'm smart enough to read it, you know?
She said
like,
not smart enough. She grew up speaking Russian. Like, it's
well,
not like she's
I'm not saying I'm stupid. I'm just saying fantasy is like there's so much there.
Saying talk
you
nice
know?
about my friend Valia. She's really cool. She's very smart. She speaks 2 languages.
No, I kind of know. I kind of can understand what you're saying, because sometimes like I feel the same way, where it can feel, sometimes fantasy can feel very convoluted, and I think sometimes it's hard to make sense, or like, what do I need to pay attention to, or especially when it is like a whole new world and all these terms, like it can, I totally understand what you're saying, because I felt the same way.
Yeah, see, it's not just me. Okay.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
I know.
Saying you're smart. That's all.
Well, thank you. Anyway, so let's talk about what inspired you to write it. Was there like something specific, or like, I don't know, we just get inspired so weirdly when it comes to books. So is there anything?
Yeah. So it was like back in 2016, and I envisioned Clem, and I saw this girl who took on this disguise, and I was very intrigued by her. And I was like, well, like, why, like, what made you want to take this disguise on? Like, what is going on? And I tried to write the story, and I didn't have her motivation, and I didn't really have the world down. And so it kind of just fizzled out, but I was still very intrigued by her and her situation. So I was like, well, maybe just like keep this in the journal for now and let it simmer, and maybe it'll be ready to write a few years later, which is kind of what happened. So in 2018, I needed to pitch my next idea to my editor to see if they wanted to buy it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to sit down with my brainstorming journal, and I'm going to bring Clem back to the forefront, because I want to write her story. I just need to figure out, like, again, like, why would she need to take this disguise on? Like, what is going on? And I think once I figured out, oh, it's for revenge. And so I was like, okay, well, why does she need to take revenge out? So I kind of like backtracked. So I was figuring out, like, okay, well, maybe like her home got stolen from her, but like, why did her home get stolen? It's like, oh, well, what if nightmares came to life in the streets and she used her magic to fight these nightmares? It was really weird. It kind of like went backwards in my head. But then once I had like the world and kind of her motivation, I all of a sudden could write the story. So, yeah, I pitched it to my editor. It's like, oh yeah, that sounds great. So then I had to write something. I'd never like pitched something and sold it without it being written. So I was like panicking a little bit. I was like, oh gosh, like I hope I can write the story, do it justice. But I feel like I honestly didn't really know how it was going to end when I was writing it. And that was also very scary. But I think I just kind of was like, look, I just want to have fun with the story. I think I was feeling a lot of pressure and expectations, and like, oh my gosh, like, is my editor going to like this, or my readers going to like this? And then I was like, you know what, just have fun writing it. And so that's what I did. And I found the ending about halfway through. I was like, okay, I see how I'm supposed to end this now. Which made for like a lot of revisions, because I definitely wrote by the seat of my pants. But yeah, it all really just was inspired by Clem, and that one striking image I had of her, like looking at her reflection in the mirror, and her true reflection shining in the mirror. So I knew like a mirror might potentially give her away. So I just had to figure out how everything else fit together.
I love that. That's really cool, because I usually start with characters too. Like, it's usually one specific character that kind of speaks to me. So that's like really cool to hear you talk about it. Like, that's how it came about. What was your favorite part about writing it?
So I think it really was just like this push-pull between Clem and Phelan, because he doesn't know it's her. And so it just gave me so many opportunities to just like, it was just so much fun writing that tension, like, and building up to that moment when he may or may not figure out it's her. I'm trying not to spoil anything, but yeah, I think and it's funny because I started writing this book in third person, and I like wrote the first chapter, and I was like, man, something just kind of feels weird. And it was like Clem being like, what are you doing? This is like my story should be written in first person. It's like, okay, oh my gosh, let me go back and rewrite this first chapter. So I think like also just like being with Clem, like I really loved her as a narrator. And I just enjoyed every second I got to spend with her writing her story.
Yeah, that's cool. I couldn't imagine that book in third person. So I'm glad Clem told you what's up. So Hannah had some questions for you regarding your writing process, and you kind of like mentioned it a little bit already. We kind of
like half answered these already.
Yeah. So let's talk about it.
Well, I was curious because, well, I've only read 2 of your books so far. I've read Sisters of Sword and Song and Dreams Lie Beneath, and they both have such like interesting concepts that I was wondering if you came up with the concepts first or the characters first. But I guess you did for Dreams Lie Beneath. It was Clem who came to you. Is that normal for you, or is there a normal?
I will say it is normal.
Yeah.
I typically always start with character. So I usually see a character in like kind of a striking situation, and I'm just like, oh, like, how did you get here? Like, who are you? What is the world like around you? And so I'm definitely one of those writers that my world building begins like, it begins with character. Like I need the character before I can world build. But I say all of that. And then with the River Enchanted, it was kind of like the opposite, where I actually saw like the setting first before I saw any of the people, any of the characters, which was like very interesting for me. So it's like I saw this like misty, moody isle, and I'm like, okay. And I could see the magic on the isle, but I was like, who are the people who live here? Like what, what's going on? So that was kind of like an interesting shift, but it's kind of like you just sometimes stories require different things from you at different times. And but typically it's always like character first.
I am going to take a moment and close my curtains further because I'm going blind all of a sudden.
Just gonna walk away for a second. That's really cool. Do you think it's because River Enchanted is an adult? Like, do you think you approached writing that differently because it was a different genre? Or did that not really make a difference?
It honestly didn't make too much of a difference. I think it was showing me that, okay, the setting is very important in this book and it's almost going to play its own character. So I had to pay a lot of attention to the setting, because with the River Enchanted, I actually, when I began drafting it, I thought it was YA. And I was like writing it as my next YA project. And I don't know if you want me to go ahead and talk about this or not. So just tell me if you want to wait for me to like fully.
Oh no, you can. Yeah, you can handle it. Like you can talk about it here. That's fine.
Okay, so yeah, I thought it was going to be YA, and even though I think I knew like the tone of the story felt different from my YA, and it wasn't until I sent I was sending my chapters one by one to my critique partner, Isabel, and when she reached Sidra's chapter, which I think is like, it's now chapter 2, but originally it was like chapter 4 or something, chapter 5. Isabel texted me, was like, hey, is this adult or YA? And when my critique partner asked me that, I was like, okay, that probably means it probably is not YA. If she's going to ask me this. But it was because Sidra, one of the narrators, she was like in her mid-20s and is dealing with very adult issues like raising a child and having some, not necessarily complications, but having some difficulties in her marriage and even with her faith. And so I was just like, well, I was still thinking like they're just more secondary characters. Like I saw like, Jack and Adara were going to be like the YA protagonists, and then I'd have Torrin and Sidra, they're adults like in their 20s, but they would I still wanted to show the relationship between like the younger people and the older people. But as the story progressed and like Torrin and Sidra, again, these 20-something-year-olds who are married, they just played a pretty huge role into the story. So when I was done with it, I was literally like, oh my goodness, like, what is this? It's like 50-50, like half of it is YA and half of it is an adult. And I don't know what to do with this. So I sent it to my agent. My agent's like, I see what you're saying. Like, I don't know either. Like, and so, but I do remember like Isabel saying like, hey, if you took this to the YA side, you're probably going to have to age Torrin and Sidra down to be teens. And I was like, oh, that changes everything about their story arc. And I just could not envision it. Or she's like, or you might have to cut them out as narrators completely. And I was like, no, I'm not doing it. I just can't do it. And so I think I just had to take a very realistic look, like, okay, I'm having these older characters. I think like I'm very familiar with YA because it's what I've done and I love YA. It's what's familiar to me. But then I could tell that I was hungry to write about older characters and different themes that I had not really been able to delve into in my YA. And so I was like, you know what? I just need to go back and revise this and kind of elevate Jack and Adara's arcs, since they originally were feeling a little bit more YA, make them feel more adults, age them up a little bit. So they're like 22, 23. So kind of fitting nicely in that kind of new adult category, but, and I just need to be brave enough and take it on the adult side on submission and see if it would sell on the adult side. Cause I was just like, it might not, like, I'm not really familiar with things on the adult side. So yeah, it's kind of like how it happened. It was one of those moments where I was like, oh man, I thought I was writing YA, but I'm really not. And I just, again, had to look at it and like, where do I see this book sitting on the bookshelf? Do I see it in the YA section of bookstore? And I was like, no, I really don't. Like, I think it is, and not necessarily that teens might not enjoy reading it, because a lot of teens do read up, and they don't mind reading about 20-something-year-olds. But I was like, I just don't, again, the tone and the atmosphere and the themes that I'm dealing with, I felt like would be better placed on the adult shelf. So that's kind of how that happened.
That's cool.
I love it. I was telling Valia that I want more like crossover between the adult and YA fantasy stuff, because we know that most YA readers are adults anyway. We're like, what's the deal? I'm just as happy about reading about someone in their 20s as someone in their teens. It's just like, you want the good stories and the pacing and some romance, and then we're fine. Yeah. But I love reading about married couples too. I'm like, yes, married issues, bring it up.
Hanna.
Yeah, me. Back to me. I was wondering if you were more of a plotter or a pantser, or does it change book to book, or is it a continuum? I keep thinking I'm a plotter, but my plots go awry all the time. And I'm like,
so I'm definitely a pantser. I love discovering the story as I go. I typically never outline, and it makes for sometimes a very scary experience, like with Dreams by Beneath, just kind of going with it, not knowing where I'm going. But I have, like, every now and then, like when I'm reaching the third act of a book and I'm starting to see how things are going to kind of unfold, I'm like, okay, let me get my journal out just to make sure I'm like going in the correct order of things, the sequence, just so I kind of do have a guide as I'm finishing up a book, like in the third act. Because again, that's like that third act when everything's like coming together and happening. And especially when you have like multiple narrators, it can be really hard to know, like, okay, whose voice, whose chapter needs to come before whose, and like how is this all going to play out. And so I will like do like a little rough like outline, so at least I know, okay, like how, but I still like, sometimes I diverge from that. But I will say, like, one day it is my dream to sell a trilogy, and I'm like, if I'm going to do that, I must have an outline, because I don't know how these authors with long series, like, you really do have to plan in advance, what you're doing. And I'm just like, I don't know if I could do it, but I don't know. I need to be better at plotting, just because I do think it does make you a little bit more effective, because you know where you're going and you don't waste time writing stuff and it's getting cut. But for the most part, I definitely just pants stuff.
Say I plot and I still end up cutting all sorts of things and like missing all sorts of things, just like how you get started, I think. And then Valia pants his trilogies.
Yeah, I do.
Oh my god!
So it's possible.
But she does have some third book angst. So
I do. If I take too long to write the last book, I'm always like, "Where's my story?" You like
the momentum.
Yeah, it's like I have to do it all together, and I'm currently in that like, oh my goodness, like where's my story? Because it took so long for me to get to that last book that I'm like, okay, sorry guys, like I don't know what's happening anymore. But that's how I am. If I outline, I get stuck, because then I feel like, oh, I have to stick to my outline. And then I'm like, but what if my characters don't want to do this? Like, sorry guys, I wasted all that time outlining. You just do your thing, it's fine, So it's possible. But you discover your process, obviously, just like with every book. So
well, that's good to know, because again, I'm like just so in awe of authors with these trilogies or 4-book series, and I'm like, oh, that would just be so fun one day to have that. But it's like, I don't know if I can do it, because I just all the foreshadowing and stuff you need to like kind of put in book 1, so where you're going. I don't know, but
I think the people who managed to write it all before they publish them, I'm in awe of that. But that means they can go back and like.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Feed the stuff in later, but it would be so hard to sit on 3 books. I don't know.
You can do it.
Yeah. We have faith in you.
I know.
We're waiting for the trilogy to come out in a few years.
Yeah. There you go.
So what is it like in a day in your life as an author? Are you a full-time writer? Do you write every day, or are you?
So I am writing full time, and it kind of depends on whether I'm on deadline or not, but I feel like I tend to follow a typical I feel like I do best when I'm structured with my day. So I try, when I get up in the morning, I go make a cup of tea and then I immediately get to work. So I feel like as soon as I wake up, it's kind of like my best writing time. Every day I feel really fresh and really excited. And so I'll like open up my manuscript, whether I'm drafting or revising, and I'll work for a few hours until I'm like so hungry I must stop, and get something to eat. And then I'll go right back to it. And then of course I'll make time to stop to do like emails. And if I need to do like a social media post, I'll kind of take some time. And then I try to always like exercise as well. So I have like a treadmill and a stationary bike. So it's like, okay, like I feel like I always work better when I have been active, because I feel like if I'm just, working crunched over my desk hour after hour after hour, it does take a toll on my health. And so I'll try to like squeeze in some exercise, and then I'll typically go back to writing. Or if I'm on deadline, I'll go back to working, and we'll work till like dinner. And then sometimes I'll even work after dinner. If it depends on like how, like sometimes I've had editors give me very tight deadlines. I'm like, okay, like I really have to work like as much as possible. But if I'm not, then I might try to spend kind of the evening reading, because I feel like I never have enough reading time these days. And so it's like anytime I can just like read and enjoy someone else's story is so nice. But yeah, I try to do just Monday to Friday, again, making it feel like going to work at my desk, at like 7:30 a.m. and being there till about 5. But again, things shift. If I'm on deadline again, I typically have to work Saturday and Sunday as well. But yeah, that's typical, I guess, for a day.
It's easier to push through if it's just for a little while.
Yeah.
And I can be super busy for a bit.
Yeah. I work really well on deadlines. I've kind of discovered that about myself. It's like, I like having a deadline and I like having a date to work towards. So sometimes I will like self-impose them on myself. Like if I'm writing a book and I'm like, all right, I want to be done with this book on this date. And so I will like literally like push myself to get it done by that date. So, yeah, I guess I don't know. I guess I need like the pressure on me to get stuff done.
I totally understand. Otherwise, I'd never get a book out. Because I'm in indie. So sooner or later, I have to make my own deadline and be like, okay, gotta hit this.
So that's funny how similar we are, though, because that's how I am too. I'm like, I can write a book when I'm on a deadline. If I'm not on a deadline, I'm like, oh, whatever. And I mean, I still work outside of home, so it's easy for me to just be like, nah, whatever,
Like, I'm tired today. I did a lot.
Yeah, I don't want to do anything. But that's really funny. I think it's funny too because you're a pantser. It's like that part is completely unstructured, and then like everything else about writing has to be structured for it to work. So
contain the chaos.
Yeah, which I love. I just love that. Anyway, sorry. Side note.
Okay, so my next question is very random, and it's because we were talking about this on a previous episode where we were talking about food. And in Dreams Lie Beneath, everyone is drinking tea with cream and honey all the time. And I drink my tea with cream and honey, and our British queen was like, who drinks tea with cream and honey? And I thought about it, I'm like, I know that's not actually what most people do. So I was like, do you drink your tea with cream and honey, or is it just your characters?
So I do drink, so it's technically like whole milk and honey, but I feel like, cream, it was cream. Are you talking about like half and half cream? Like, is that like your cream?
I drink whipping cream level cream in my tea because because I'm lactose intolerant.
Okay.
And there's no lactose in the cream, but the more milk that's in it, the more lactose is in it.
Gotcha. So yeah, I do.
Also, it's delicious.
I can imagine. I love whipping cream, but I just feel like cream sounds better than like milk, I guess. So
yeah, whole milk.
Yeah.
It does sound nicer. I know, and some people think the honey is like too much flavor in it, but I'm like, but I like the flavor.
Yeah, no, I love honey in my tea.
That's all my very important questions.
Yeah, that's all she answered. No, I mean, we covered River Enchanted already because I had questions about that because I'm reading that now and loving it. And it's definitely so rich in like the world building. So it was really fun. Like, it's really interesting that you said that came to you first, like the place versus the characters, which I can definitely tell. But is that what you're working on next? Like the follow-up book to that, or you're working on something else now? Or can you talk about that?
We saw an announcement. I know, on your Instagram. So
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because it's been announced, I can finally talk about it.
Okay.
So I am working on the sequel for River Enchanted. Um, and I should be getting like my first round of edits for that very soon. And I'm hoping to like unveil like the title and the release date very soon. But yeah, currently right now I'm on deadline for my revisions for Iris at the Front, which is my next YA fantasy duology, and it is going to be published with Wednesday Books in early 2023. I am like extremely excited about this book. It was like my COVID book. So I all of 2020, I couldn't write anything. I felt so overwhelmed by the pandemic. And I was actually on deadline for River Enchanted and Dreams Lie Beneath. So I was like very busy editing, and I'm glad I had that editing work. It's like, I don't think I can draft anything at this time. And so like literally I went like almost a full year. It was like 11 months. And it was like in November, and I finally like had a breakthrough where I started writing the story. And I pitch it as you've got mail in a World War I fantasy inspired setting. So and so yeah, it was like the book I wrote coming out of like one of the hardest years I think most of us have lived through. And so and I can't say too much about it, but I will say this, that like all my other fantasy books have had very like I was very focused on the world building, and like because I always want the world to feel real. And this is like the first time like I actually was like, you know what, like I do care about the world obviously, but like I was very much just writing about these two people falling in love through letters. And I think it makes it honestly my most romantic book, and just something just very compelling about it, because it's like it's very much about the two of them. So that's like some of my revisions of having to be like, okay, I have to figure out now how the world is working, because I just so much on falling in love, you know. But yeah, I'm super excited about it. I love the book so much.
I am so excited about that. I love like writing letters, like falling in love through letters. Writing letters is like one of my like things. Like I love that. And so like when I saw your announcement, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like, this is gonna be amazing.
I know. I was like, you've got mail crossed with anything. And I'm like, yes, tell me more.
So yeah, that's really cool. That's really exciting for you. You have so many like good things coming out. I did have a random question for you, right? Which Enneagram type are you?
Yeah, so I'm a type 4, which I think is like the individualist, and we're I guess like very much into the aesthetic of things, and also have a lot of feelings. I guess is how people kind of describe it. That's why like so many 4s wind up as writers and very creative people, I think. But yeah, and I think I'm a 4-wing 5.
Okay.
I'm a 5-wing 4.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm a 1. Okay, I don't fit
Valia
in.
keeps us in line over here.
I'm maybe a 1, so I love 1s.
We need 1s around.
Yeah, that's what they keep telling me. It's fine. No, but that's so funny though, because you are like, your Instagram is like so aesthetically pleasing, and I feel like everything about you like so aesthetically pleasing that it's just like
how's that
so
for a compliment?
well.
Everything about you is so aesthetically pleasing.
It's not in a creepy way, okay? Like
she just likes your hair. It's fine.
I do. And it's great. I told Becca that all the time, actually. I was like, that's how we became friends, I'm pretty sure. I was like,
because you like her hair?
I like your hair.
Yeah, we were like talking about hair for a while.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. And then we like, I think I arc read Queen's Rising too, actually. I think that was my first time reading anything by you. Obviously, because it was your debut, duh. But I read it as an arc. And then like we buddy read the Broken Earth trilogy?
The Broken Earth, yeah.
Mm-hmm. During 2020, which was an experience. Not sure.
That's like an intense series. Like,
yeah. So we're like buddies for life now, because we went through 2020 while reading that intense trilogy.
Everyone else is reading rom-coms in 2020.
And we're like, how depressed can we make ourselves here? It's fine. No, but it was great. Are you reading anything right now? I know you said you don't like get a chance to read very often, but
yeah, so I have like a whole pile of books that I'm hoping to read a few this December. I'm on deadline, but I'm trying to take like a few weeks off for Christmas. But so I I got an arc of Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sue Lynn Tan, and I'm like super excited to dive into that one. But I'm also, oh gosh, I just discovered Lore Olympus, and I am like so stuck
I
into
love
that
it.
right now, and I can't stop. I'm like, okay, stop, I have to work. So I've been enjoying that as well.
Lore Olympus is my favorite.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't read any web comics, and that was in 2020. That's what I read in 2020. Lore Olympus. So everyone's like, you need to read this. I'm like, I don't really read web comics. I'm like, please read this. And then there's something about it because Webtoons is so scrolly that it like stopped me from my doom scrolling. I was like, no, we're looking at the news. You're gonna read Lore Olympus.
I love that. That's funny. Yeah. So, I mean, that's all I had for you. I'm glad that you could be here. And
Yes, it was lovely to meet you.
Same. Thank you guys so much for having me again.
Yeah,
It was fun.
of course. I'll definitely link everything for you guys that you'll be able to find Becca online. Her Instagram, Becca J. Ross, and her release. Everything will be linked so you guys can find her, follow her. She is doing great things, and I'm excited about your next books. So excited. Okay.
Thank you.
I won't bully too many people into reading them, but just enough. Okay.
It's with
just
love.
enough. It's with love. It's always with love. No. But yeah, before you guys go, please give us a follow on your favorite podcast platform and on our Instagram at Reading Queens Pod, and then tell your friends that we're here doing really fun episodes. I said so. Anyway, until next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.